Most people believe the reason they are stuck is because they do not know enough, but that is rarely the real problem. The real problem is that their mind is already too full. Full of opinions, full of assumptions, full of fear, full of the desperate need to always be right. You walk into a room, and before someone even finishes speaking, you have already judged them. You hear a new idea and immediately compare it to what you already believe. You try something once, fail, and instantly decide, this will never work. And then you wonder why your life never changes. Why everyone else keeps growing while you stay trapped in the same mindset year after year. The truth is painful. A closed mind cannot receive a new life. My name is Wall-E, and today's story is about a boy who spent most of his life trying to prove he was smart, until an old man taught him the dangerous cost of having a full cup. And honestly, this story changed something deep inside me. Maybe it will change something inside you too. In a small village near the mountains lived a young boy named Yousef. He was 18 years old, quiet, curious, hardworking. But in the eyes of the village, Yousef was foolish. Not because he was lazy, not because he was cruel, but because he asked too many questions. Why does the river always flow this way? Why do people become angry when they are afraid? Why does everyone follow traditions they never question? The villagers hated questions like these. Questions made people uncomfortable. And uncomfortable people usually do one thing: they laugh. So they laughed at Yousef at the market at the tea shop. On the dusty village roads, they called him the boy who knows nothing. At first, Yousef fought back. He spent nights reading books, memorizing facts, collecting information like weapons. He thought knowledge would finally earn him respect. But every time he tried to speak, someone older interrupted him. What does a boy like you know? And slowly, something painful happened inside him. He stopped asking questions, stopped sharing ideas, stopped being open. Instead, he built walls around his mind, because pretending to know everything felt safer than being embarrassed again. And that is where many people lose themselves. They stop learning, not because they are wise, but because they are afraid. One afternoon, after being humiliated again in the marketplace, Yousef walked far beyond the village, past the fields, past the old broken well, up into the quiet hills where nobody could hear him. He sat beneath a large tree and stared silently at the ground. That was when he heard an old voice beside him. "That is a good tree." Yousef looked up. An old man slowly lowered himself beside the trunk. His name was Rumi. Most villagers called him the Wanderer. Some respected him deeply. Others ignored him completely. Rumors said he had traveled across distant lands, learning from wise teachers. The old man sat quietly for a while before speaking again. "You look heavy," he said softly. Yousef sighed. "People think I know nothing." Rumi smiled gently. "And what do you think?" Yousef hesitated. "I try to learn," he replied. "I study. I memorize. I prepare answers." The old man nodded thoughtfully. Then he picked up a small stone from the ground. "If I try to pour water into this stone," he asked, "how much water will it hold?" "None," Yousef answered. "Why?" "Because it is solid. There is no space inside." Rumi placed the stone carefully beside him. Exactly. Then he looked directly into Yousef's eyes. Your mind has become like this stone. Yousef frowned slightly. The old man continued. When you walk into every conversation already defending yourself, already deciding what is true before truly listening, your mind becomes closed. Nothing new can enter. Those words hit Yousef harder than any insult ever had, because, deep down, he knew they were true. After that day, Yousef began visiting the hills often. And somehow, Rumi was almost always there. Some days they spoke for hours. Other days they sat silently beneath the tree watching the wind move through the valley. Slowly, the old man began teaching him something far more valuable than information. He taught him openness. One evening, Rumi shared a story from his youth. When I was young, he said, I traveled to study under a famous teacher. I arrived believing I already understood many things. The teacher welcomed me warmly and poured tea into my cup, but he kept pouring. The tea overflowed onto the table. I finally shouted, Stop, the cup is already full. Rumi smiled softly, and the teacher replied, So are you. Yousef felt something shift inside him, not dramatically. Not all at once, but quietly. Like a locked door finally opening a little. So how do I empty the cup? He asked. Rumi's answer stayed with him forever. You do not empty it by forgetting what you know. You empty it by becoming willing. Willing to listen. Willing to question yourself. Willing to admit that reality may be larger than your current understanding. Changing did not happen overnight. Real growth never does, but slowly Yousef began practicing something difficult. He practiced being wrong. When someone disagreed with him, he stopped rushing to defend himself. Instead, he paused, breathed, and silently asked himself, What if there is something here I have not seen yet? He started asking genuine questions again. Not questions designed to prove others wrong, real questions. How did you come to believe that? What am I missing? What can I learn here? And slowly, people changed around him. Even those who once mocked him began treating him differently. Because there is something powerful about a person who truly listens. Something rare about someone who makes others feel heard. And this time, the knowledge Yousef gained became different. It no longer sat on the surface like armor. It went deeper. It changed how he saw life itself, because when the cup is empty, what enters actually stays. Years passed. Yousef left the village and traveled far beyond the mountains. He failed many times, made mistakes. Met kind people. Met cruel people. Learned from books. Learned from pain. Learned from silence. But no matter where life took him, he carried one lesson everywhere. Show up with an empty cup, not empty of confidence, not empty of wisdom, but empty of the need to already know everything. Over time, younger people began seeking him for advice, not because he had all the answers, but because he listened deeply, without interrupting, without judging, without trying to win. One day, a young student asked him, How did you become so wise? Yousef smiled softly. An old man once taught me that the most powerful thing a person can do is remain teachable, and honestly, that may be the lesson many of us need today. Most people are not trapped because they lack intelligence. They are trapped because their mind is too full of ego, full of assumptions, full of certainty. But growth begins the moment you become curious again. The moment you stop demanding that life matches your old beliefs. The moment you say, "Show me something I have not seen yet." That is where transformation begins, not in collecting more information, but in making space. So if life feels stuck right now, maybe it is time to empty your cup. And if this story touched your heart, subscribe to Tales by Hasiba for more powerful stories about mindset, growth, wisdom, and emotional life lessons that help you improve both your English and your understanding of life itself.